How are you all doing today? Oh, good, good. Can you hear me okay? Yes. Excellent. Oh my gosh. Well, it is such an incredible honor to be here with you today. And please, please do not hesitate to ask me any questions as we go along. I would love to hear from you throughout. Oh, hello, hello. All right. So I am going to talk about emotional intelligence today. And I thought I would just begin by sharing the topics that we will cover in our workshop, which are a history of EI, the current conceptualization, applications and examples, and I hope to learn examples from you as well. I will go over measurement of EI, some research findings, and then we'll talk through some conclusions together. And so initially, EI was studied in the 1920s during the growth of intelligence testing, and it was called social intelligence. This movement actually had a very specific purpose. It was to place millions of men in different military roles during World War I, but the researchers who were tasked with developing tools for intelligence testing realized that IQ did not fully capture people's potential for success. However, my people, the behavioral psychologists, stifled the study of emotional intelligence, as at the time it was considered taboo to explore this side of the human psyche. And so we had to wait a long time for the resurgence of EI. The 80s ushered in the growth of alternative theories that could potentially explain intelligence better than the limited theoretical underpinnings of IQ. And Sternberg was one of the major figures who proposed an alternative theory. His theory had three components: analytical, practical, and creativity. Analytical is akin to IQ, the traditional Western way of measuring intelligence, but he also included this practical component that's synonymous with street smarts and creativity. And this was the first time that intelligence was considered from a cross-cultural rather than a Western lens, so it was quite exciting. Gardner is well known for his theory of multiple intelligences, and he postulated that intelligence is broken down into 8 different components, and we all have some level of those 8 components. Some people may be even across them, some people may be especially strong in some areas. He was the first to emphasize the role of intrapersonal and interpersonal intelligence. And the intra is intelligence about yourself. The inter is intelligence about others. At the same time, at Yale, they were looking at emotional intelligence as a standalone concept. And indeed, groundbreaking research there conclusively showed that EI is a major indicator of achievement. So this offered an explanation for why 2 people with the same IQ level could attain vastly different levels of success in their work or their personal lives. And this was really exciting from an ecological validity perspective. It gave us something to intervene upon in order to cultivate success. I'm very excited to take us back to the 90s for a few minutes. Some familiar faces on there. As the concept of EI was unfolding, I was a college student learning about related theories. Back then, I benefited so much from female mentors, and one of the most profound ones not only took me under her wing, but gave me a chance to learn about EI from her research and also from her way of being. And so I'm so excited that I get to share her with you shortly. There was a perfect storm brewing by the mid-90s. There was a great deal of outcry as findings presented in the book The Bell Curve could be grossly misconstrued and deeply accentuated the issues known about IQ all along. And this intensified critiques of intelligence assessment in the following ways. So first and foremost, is there bias in intelligence tests, meaning we're using tests that have been developed initially with men only, solely from a Western perspective, and now we're going to use them to measure people who come here from all different places. So that's one major concern. Do traditional intelligence tests capture what it means to be intelligent? So that's what the researchers in the 80s were focusing on, that maybe this was too narrow and we needed to think more broadly. And finally, what the Yale team was looking at is whether other factors account for these differences. So the foundation for EI had been established, and both researchers and the general public were questioning how we traditionally measure intelligence. Dan Goleman pulls it all together in his best-selling book on EI, and the concept appeared on the Time magazine cover in 1995. Has anyone read his book? What did you think? Yeah, it was awesome. This was awesome. This was so exciting, and very quickly it becomes a pop culture phenomenon. He surmised that intellect only accounts for 20% of success in life. And for example, EI, social class, and even luck makes up for the rest. But yikes, by the late 90s, so I'm off in the great city of Philadelphia. I'm in graduate school. I am so excited. I'm taking an intellectual assessment class, so I'm going to learn how to do IQ testing. And I even found out right then and there, like, once you learn how to do it, you can never have your IQ tested again. And I was like, yes, I'll never know. But I also thought, oh, this is great. I'll get to learn how to measure EI. And my professor actually said to the contrary. He refused to teach us how to do this because, in his words, it had been Oprah-alized. So that was very, very disappointing. But fortunately, those Yale researchers, Mayer, Salve, and Caruso, who were involved in the initial formulations of the concept, stuck with it, and their work gave EI academic cred. Their research has been foundational in understanding how EI is operationalized and applied. And so without further ado, here is the current conceptualization, which actually still reflects both intra and interpersonal intelligence. So it is twofold. It's the ability to recognize and understand emotions, and then using this awareness to manage yourself and relationships with others. And so in my world of clinical psychology, this is a beautiful example of assessment and intervention. We hope to broaden our knowledge in order to apply it and make things better. And that's exactly what they've done here. And so it actually breaks down into 4 components, and I will talk about each of them a bit more. In the what I see assessment column, there's self-awareness and social awareness, and I will define these more fully. In the what I do intervention column, there's self-management and relationship management. Self-awareness is defined as the ability to accurately perceive your own emotions, and also sustained awareness of your emotions as they happen. And finally, discerning how you tend to respond to specific situations and people. What do we call that now? Our triggers. This is the initial formulation of our triggers. In regards to social awareness, it's defined as the ability to accurately pick up on emotions in other people. You observe what's really going on, and you gain an understanding of what other people are thinking and feeling, even if you don't feel the same way. And so in clinical psychology, we call that empathy. The next step for us is to think about how we translate awareness skills. So self-awareness of your emotions and the emotions of others can help you successfully self-manage interactions. We aim to discover what role our emotions have in our interactions in order to manage them as needed to create positive interactions. So I'm a boy mom, and this came to mind, and I have some examples for you as well, and I'm eager to learn examples from you. I absolutely cherish being a teacher at Fordham, and I see students here, and I'm so happy about that. And I was preparing for today, I realized that our students inspire me to try and be more self-aware. And perhaps recently this was most salient in fall 2021 when we came back fully in person person. I will admit I was so nervous about teaching in a mass to a fully masked group. I was teaching a large section of Introduction to Clinical Psychology, which is one of my favorite classes to teach, but we weren't distancing anymore, and it was a very new set of variables to contend with. But at the same time, I was over the moon to be in the classroom with them again. I also knew that they were so nervous, and that was palpable. And this compelled me to figure out how I could regulate my own anxieties and instead try and only bring my joy and excitement into the classroom. So I think that for me, this transition forced growth as an educator employing EI strategies, and I'm so grateful for that. In this way, we were able to cultivate a positive learning environment. How about you? Do you have examples of utilizing self-awareness in your work? Any examples? Oh, yes.
I don't know if this is an example, but we are, so I have about 5 direct reports, and it used to be all about productivity and putting them like in their row and making sure that they did all of their proper tasks. And in the last few years, especially because of their remote situation, it's become seeing the whole person, and it's really, it's about who has children and who needs to go take care of their parent, and then you work like around that, trying to get the work done, and it's just been so much more fulfilling. And anyway, I think that's emotional intelligence.
Oh my gosh. I couldn't agree more. I think that's a huge part of this, and it sounds like such a beautiful example of managing self and social awareness. Thank you so much. Did I see another hand over here? Oh, Donna, thank you.
So I work here at Fordham, and I have several direct reports. And I'm thinking about conflict in the workplace. And as a manager, you know, the person who darkens your doorway, and they got a problem. And oftentimes, you know, what you realize, of course, is that there's the thing that they're saying on the surface that's wrong, whatever it is, right? But that it's emotional intelligence that lets me, because I think a knee-jerk reaction would be, okay, I got to go fix that, whatever that situation is. And that's not always, sometimes that's not tenable. It's not a thing I can fix. But it's also about sitting back for a second and understanding what the concern or the worry or the anxiety, whatever it is, the thing that's, you know, that's really underneath that is helpful, because sometimes that is something you can do something about, right? You can't fix whatever that thing is they're upset about, but you can help assuage anxiety. And I think anxiety drives so much conflict in the workplace. Yeah.
When I was preparing for today, I found that most of the examples I prepared had anxiety in them, and I was like, maybe I should mix it up a little bit. But I absolutely agree, and that was also such a beautiful example of self-awareness and social awareness, like this tendency that I bet a lot of us have to want to fix things, and then meeting people where they are in terms of what we can do to fix them. I think this is exactly that. Did anyone else want to share an example? Oh, thank you.
Sure, I'm Genevieve, Fordham College, 83. I think for leaders now, it's learning that everything's personal, everything. And we used to say no personal in the office, and now those people are not getting it. And I think we're seeing new leadership, and if some of them have to go away, it's okay. And I think as women, we've always wanted this, and we weren't allowed to bring it into boardrooms, for sure, or even into employee meetings. But I think it's personal, and I think that that's a good thing.
Oh my gosh. I have chills because I couldn't agree more, and you're reminding me of my feelings as a teacher. I feel so free to make this more personal now, and I love it. I always wondered if as a teacher I would be able to evolve mid-career. And I think the last few years maybe forced that, but it's been so freeing and so wonderful. And thank you so much for capturing that. Any other examples? Yes, oh, thank you.
To what I'm CBA 2002, now Gabelli, Adrian Green. Just to add on to what Genevieve and also Donna said, I'm in a unique position. I'm sure some people probably do what I do. I work in HR, and empathy is huge, and we talk about it a lot, especially when we're looking at leadership qualities. We look at employee engagement surveys as well, and I can tell you that there is certainly a correlation to leaders who share a bit more about their personal life, their own career trajectory, what their trials and tribulations were. It definitely lends, I think, another face to who they are, that they are a human being. And people who have those leaders in play, I think they really find a connection. And I find that the engagement is certainly much higher when you look at the data. And also, we do a lot of Ravens, Hogan's testing at work as well. 360s, really just assess, someone's leadership trajectory, not necessarily to determine a role in particular, but really what is their development area? What is their way of thinking? Is it immature? Is it more mature? In all these different areas of what makes a good leader. So I think empathy and situational awareness, self-awareness is certainly high on my list.
I have so much to say. Thank you so much. That is a good test with excellent cross-cultural properties. That was one of the things I was so excited to share to students when I started teaching intellectual assessment. There are some good tests out there that don't have the same limitations as traditional IQ tests. And I feel so strongly also about empathy. And I should have said from the beginning, I am serving as an associate dean here, and I'm a teacher in psychology, but I'm also a clinical psychologist with a specialty in pediatric psych. And we pay deep attention to those research findings as well, that there's a sweet spot in terms of disclosure, that patients really value some disclosure from their mental health care providers. Maybe too much, it steers the sessions to something that it's not supposed to be, but too little is not so comfortable, and we try to operate from that data as well. So thank you so much for sharing the HR side of it. Yeah.
Experience at my company. So you get to a certain leadership level, we put you through this assessment testing. It's really just to round it on, what they need to develop, what they need to work on, so we can put them in certain experiences or opportunities to hopefully they can develop better in that particular area. So they'll make a great senior executive leader, hopefully someday.
And the Ravens has a culture-free intelligence test version as well that we love. My graduate students here at Fordham do testing for the East Harlem community out of Mount Sinai Hospital, and we like that test a lot for those kiddos. Yeah. Oh, well, thank you. All right. Oh my gosh, I wish I had been taking notes of all these terrific examples. Put this here. Let me next talk about translating social awareness. So social awareness informs relationship management to facilitate clear communication and effective handling of conflict, which we've started to explore more so. We aim to understand how the emotions of others are impacting interactions or situations so that we can intervene more effectively. And I couldn't help but include The Office. I think Michael often is probably the one who's stressing everybody out. And I thought I'd share an example from my psychologist's life about a young patient who continues to inspire me every day. In 2008, just before I came to Fordham, I was asked to help with a difficult case, a 12-year-old recipient of multiple organ transplants who was considered gravely ill. And he had grown up in poverty and had spent most of his life in the hospital. When he was home, it was hard for his family to manage his special healthcare needs. And so I was asked to help him learn how to, although the team had little hope that he would respond. And Fordham, being what it is, gave me their blessing to take this on just as I was about to start my professorship here. And so on the Mount Sinai end of things, it was suggested that I join a rounds to meet him, which I kind of understood what that would look like. In the moment where I walked in the room to see this frightened boy hooked up to everything you can imagine being grilled by a group of adults, I just was instantly struck by how this must have felt for him. And then in a moment of assertiveness that I wasn't quite sure that I actually had, I doubled back after we left and said, I just want to say hi to you and how much I can't wait to talk to you more without this entourage. And I glanced at his John Cena poster and asked if that was his favorite wrestler. And that was the start of a beautiful friendship because he gave me a chance to intervene more effectively. So I think about that all the time as a really powerful example of social awareness for me. Any other examples you'd like to share about social awareness? Oh, thank you. Let me make sure this works. Hello.
I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm Gloria Isbell, and I'm certified in emotional intelligence, particular assessments, particularly the EQI and EQ360. And so a little bit about social awareness is in the workplace, we're finding that leadership is now having to delve into understanding the complexity of their teams, their organization. And so that means socializing with others except for their peers. And that is becoming a multitude of challenges for them because it means no longer sitting around just talking about what the business is going to drive. It's also understanding what is driving you. How do we get beyond today's productivity and more into understanding how do we foster a relationship to be productive? So I'm seeing a lot more of that happening in the social awareness stage, and it's really then taking the time to have lunch, take a break, in this world of whirlspin. How do we do that and take a break to get to know people, to socialize in the levels in which those individuals get to know us? And that's big, big challenge because everybody's we're all in the business of trying to get business done and trying to find the right people. And we're learning that the biggest asset in any business are the people.
I am so grateful to have your perspective here today, and you have accentuated the content much better than I can. And I may have to ask you when I get to a couple of slides ahead for your input as well. Thank you so much. Any other social awareness comments or examples? Oh, thank you.
Thank you. My name is Yahaira Novoa. I work for the Office of Finance. I unfortunately am not an alumni, but I have the privilege to work with an amazing team. And I just wanted to echo what you just said. I am a COVID hire from Fordham. Prior to Fordham, I worked in corporate finance for over 12 years. So coming into academia, not only was it a new world, but I found myself in that role. I know many of you have heard of what is a chief happiness officer, I think. Not that I am the chief happiness officer, but I have found myself to become that connector, right? I am not in a leadership role, but I do support leaders. And I not only connect with the team, but and then I am that connection and that gateway of communicating, those conversations or those feelings that were taboo to speak about. And I've found a lot of joy not only playing that role, because being new to Fordham gave me a platform to connect not only with people in my team, but with everyone in campus. I have amazing colleagues that have taken me under their wing from human resources, actually. But they're a perfect example of that, right? That I've connected with them, and I've also connected people that felt like they didn't have a voice or afraid to speak. So I would say inclusion has been the biggest thing for me and throughout this process. So just wanted to say that, and thank you for that point. Thank you all.
We all need this role in our teams. It's so important. Thank you so much. All righty. And so I have the joy of beginning to introduce my beloved undergraduate mentor. Actually, I also have called her my job fairy and mentor for life. This is the great Sigal Barsaid, giving a similar talk on how to build these kinds of skills in the workplace. And so I thought we would start with self-awareness. The most basic overarching way that we do this is by journaling or self-monitoring regularly. But we can also hone in on specific situations. You can do this by tracking and backtracking your emotions in a difficult conversation or a meeting to learn your tendencies in emotionally arousing situations. And as I've been preparing, I've been talking to different colleagues and friends, and one of my colleagues shared with me an example that they said I could totally share, that for them would be becoming frustrated and thinking that they don't advocate as effectively under that circumstances. So for them, it would be knowing to focus on the frustration piece. And I was like, oh, that's exactly this. That's right on. So you've developed self-awareness of your emotions, and here it's frustration, and then that leads to less of an action that you hope for. So what do you do on the frustration side to get to the action that you're hoping for? And finally, and this could have been one of the answers back to my colleague, role-playing can help you navigate difficult situations, and it's really helpful for identifying emotions and also for practice. I, though, on the flip side, will never forget when I was training to be a psychologist, and supervisors would suggest role plays, and then I would ask adolescent clients to role play in their faces as we would get started, but it helps a lot. It really helps a lot, and it actually can be really fun once you get into it. In regards to improving social awareness, oh my gosh, this is the slide that please, I can't wait to hear your other ideas for this. There are lots of strategies that we can employ. Spending extra time observing, asking and listening, playing back and summarizing, suspending your judgment, reading body language, deciphering emotions in speech and tone, maintaining eye contact, giving the speaker your full attention, which, my gosh, it's so hard on Zoom, right? Like, that is not an easy thing to do several years into Zoom. And then, of course, trying on the shoes of others. And I have to say, I had such a great example to practice these kinds of skills a couple of weeks ago. Usually, I run a very stressful committee meeting. Mary Jane, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And several times a year. And recently, a dear colleague did it instead with me and attendance. And I just got to watch, and I learned a great deal from doing that I think helped us more effectively follow up afterwards. So because I was an observer and not the facilitator, it was fairly seamless to be able to spend extra time observing, asking and listening, suspending my judgment, trying to read body language and deciphering emotions. And in the end, I synthesized what I gleaned from these different techniques, and I think I was able to provide more focused recommendations to my colleague who was running the meeting and moving forward. And I'm eager to hear from you. Are there any other strategies that you find helpful for improving social awareness? Anything else we can do? Oh, yes. We go there and then there.
Thank you, Kathy, a psychometrician, but I do have some social skills anyway. What I find very helpful is remembering what is my role in the interaction first, and often, particularly the last couple of years, my physical body. If I'm tired, I'm telling you, I often have to say, you know what, you have a very good point. I need to take a breath. Can we revisit this in the morning? Or sometimes even, the person knocks on your door and you're thinking, oh, really right now? But you have to listen. So I really do try to take that extra deep breath. And right now, curling my toes and my feet, which is really helpful when you're doing public speaking. I don't know who taught me that. But again, when we're kids and when we're trying to grow up and we're trying to prove that we're wonderful and we're going to be the next Tanya, it's all about what we are in the interaction. Like, oh, you're wrong. Okay, so this is why you're wrong. Or, did you try this or this? And so trying to really step back and say, okay, where am I starting from, particularly physically? Am I tired? Did I get enough rest? Did I eat a lunch? Whatever. And then secondly, is this my trigger? Although I don't I'm too much of a statistician for that one. But who am I in this joint interaction?
Thank you so much. I was just thinking about your words and applying them to the example that I just shared. And I think that made the difference too, that I reframed my role in the situation, and that helped a great deal. Thank you. And my son's favorite person at Fordham, one of their favorite, they have a long list, but is a psychometrician.
Thanks, Rachel. I'm Patricia. I'm Dean of Undergraduate Admission here at Fordham. I was struck by how Ignatian this is in many ways. So this is so much like the Examine. And I think the other piece, just for your own self-care, is to maybe not do it as much in the moment as to let some time pass and do it when you have some quiet time, because I think you need that space from that moment where it's fraught with so many things. So some analysis in the moment, but maybe more analysis later.
Thank you so much, Patty. I absolutely agree. I think we need to give ourselves some time and distance. And what you said about the Ignatian feel, I think that's what drew me to Fordham after having this kind of background. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Maureen Bannon, and Gabelli 1980. It wasn't Gabelli then, it was CBA. So I want to add on to a few comments here about how we can use emotional intelligence. And for me, it's been a learning experience with the different generations. And since I graduated in 1980, you can all sort of figure out how old I am, my age range. So I work at a university downtown in the Village. And well, there are a few down there, but I think it's the big one. And but I had worked in real briefly. I had worked in financial media for a number of years and a couple of decades, and then I made a career a transition into higher ed because I also have a graduate degree in English and was an English teacher years ago. So I get bored. I change careers all the time. So so as a result, my direct reports are mostly of a younger generation. Many of them are working at NYU. For, well, you all figured that out, to get graduate degrees and whatnot. So, but I have to say, it's been a learning experience. I've worked there for about 19 years, getting used to the interactions of a younger generation as I get older and they're younger in how we have to interact. And I must say, having been raised Catholic, going to being educated by the nuns and then the Jesuits, that I was raised, and I'm sure many of us, that you don't challenge your supervisor, you don't challenge, and that's sort of ingrained in me, and so it's taken me some time to learn how to interact with another generation so that if they're speaking to me as if I'm a pal or I'm a peer. And so what I've learned to do is if I get angry or I'm a little taken aback that, gee, you sent me that email telling me what to do, giving me assignments, it happens. And these are all very, very smart young people and really nice, good people. I've hired them, but I just I'm not your peer, I'm not your pal. So what I've learned to do is, I think you mentioned that, I've forgotten your name, Patty. Patty mentioned is just to wait, step back. I sometimes literally take a walk around the block, but not respond right away. And think about it and ask more questions of the person and then say, I'll think about this and get back to you. Because I also was working in an industry in finance, financial media, where you have to respond quickly. So it's been a learning experience for me.
I've had very much the same experience, and I'm quite fortunate that I've had really fantastic girl bosses who've helped me in that regard, and my graduate students certainly helped me in that regard, because I felt this, like that I was maybe losing touch with meeting them where they were, and they keep me honest all the time. I think I missed you before, yes.
It's all right, thank you. Hi, my name is Leanne. I'm a new GA in Rose Hill for Res Life, and I advise a lot of students, and something that kind of overlaps with what everybody else said, and that's in the chart, but I think is really important, is just being mindful that you and like yourself, like come from your own experiences and your own culture and your own environment, which isn't to say that your experiences and your perspective doesn't matter, but something I've always kept in mind is that when I get angry or I'm in conflict with others that I work with or I help advise or that supervise me, I always think about how they'll also come from their own experiences, their own cultures. And even if there's something that I have to address in the moment, like in a meeting or something where I can't afford like time to like take a step back, I always try to remember that everybody has their own shoes that they walked in, and I come from that and they come from that. So that's something that's just helped me and I wanted to share.
Thank you so much. I wish I had known you 2 weeks ago. I was teaching cultural humility in my current class, and you just explained it so beautifully. Thank you. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, one book that may help some in the room, it's called Humble Inquiry. It's by Edgar Schein, and the book talks about engaging with individuals in a humble way, inquiring versus explaining. You know, a lot of times you come into engagement with individuals in your organization as a leader, and you think they want you to give the answer. Most of the time, they are coming to give you the answer. So it's inquiring on what are they trying to tell you and asking those thoughtful, open-ended questions, and they will lead you to what the real answer is. So that's a technique that helps a lot for leaders, because then it takes the onus off of you as the leader of trying to fix whatever the issue is, because a lot of times they already have the answer. They just want you to be able to validate their answer that they're coming to share with you.
Thank you so much. Any other comments? Oh, let me. Thank you.
Just to echo what you just said, and it just that struck a nerve, because I'm the general counsel to a major municipality and Department of Public Works, and and so my job is to fix it, right? Things break, and I have to fix it, and I have to figure out who's got to be contacted at FEMA and who's got to be contacted. So anyway, my son graduated from Fordham 2 years ago in Development, and so we were having a conversation, and and he's telling me these things, and I'm responding, and finally he says, "I don't need you to fix it. I just need you to listen." And it was like, whoa, and I think that I applaud him for doing that, because that was not, my father was a Fordham lawyer. I would never have said that to him. I would have taken the advice. So I appreciate that he has, that we have that good relationship that he can do, but also that he has the self-awareness to realize that he didn't want me to fix it. He just wanted to share the experience with me and maybe give me a perspective, but not necessarily the answer.
Oh, thank you.
That's exactly what I was going to say. My kids call me with frustration. I finally realized what I should ask them is, do you want advice or do you want an ear? And so usually they want an ear.
We strive to figure that out in clinical psychology, and I'm so thankful for these examples. Any other comments? Oh, yes.
I'm Ellen Hunt, graduate 85 from Lincoln Center. I've just found, because I've had some entrepreneurial startups, I've worked in corporate, I'm married, and that's a whole negotiation process. It goes on, it goes on. You know what I'm talking about. So with this whole idea of listening, I think that there are all different levels of listening, and that you really have to find a way to quiet yourself, not just about this non-judgment, but just really have nothing else going on but just listening in every way you possibly can. Second thing I find is not trying to solve it. And I think part of that is, maybe it's feminine, I don't know, it just comes up, but telling myself I'm not going to do that. And the third thing is, I don't know why I always feel like I've got to do something now. Oh my God, it's got to happen now. And what I've discovered is sometimes it's just best to say, I'm going to take some time about this. I'm going to think about it. I'm not ready to talk to you about this. I'm not ready to negotiate that deal. I want to be able to come back. And I think there's a moment of terror when you're not going to respond, that you're going to create some space for you to take care of yourself. And I think that that is what I'm finding in my marriage, in my relationships with people. It's taking care of myself so I can take care of what's going on, and don't feel panicked. Unless the place is burning down, in which case, shut up, move. But it's hardly ever that, even in corporate life, even when there are these quote unquote political, crises, the news broke and your company, just killed 7 million people. You have time to think it through.
Thank you. These comments will make this so much better the next go around, and I'm grateful to you. And there's a physiological explanation for exactly what you're describing, that when we get in this fight and flight response mode, like the emotions are driving us, and giving yourself time to pause allows you to put those aside to the extent that they might be dictating your action. Did I miss anyone over here? Okay, thank you. All right. EI has also generated strategies to support our work as managers, and we've been talking about a lot of this. The first one on here very much aligns with self-awareness, trying to discover what roles emotions are playing in your interactions with others. The second item on here very much aligns with social awareness. If you sense tension or other emotional reactions in language or speech, asking questions to seek understanding. This third one is still, I think, very difficult for me. I think I get stuck in the assessment side and don't switch to intervention as quickly as I could. But being quick to settle disputes, differences of opinion, and misunderstandings. And we've been talking about the overall ethos of striving to build high quality, high trust relationships, and how really wonderful it's been to have that espoused more and more so. There are other applications of emotional intelligence as well. We definitely need it in the mental health professions. It's something we are implicitly looking for when we interview candidates for very few graduate program slots amongst hundreds of applicants. I am totally a clinical psychologist mom. These are my sweet twin boys who are now 11, and I totally confess to trying to apply EI early on. There clearly was conflict brewing here, and in fact, like to this day, the conflict typically is in that exact same direction, and they overheard me a lot during the hybrid teaching days. Actually, they overheard me teaching you statistics. Oh my gosh, these memories. And when they overheard me from time to time, they drew that picture that apparently I'm a feelings teacher, which sounds like a fantastic gig. And they also were overhearing this, so for the last few days, and they don't believe me that I really knew who John Cena was in 2008, and that he even is old enough to have existed in 2008. So I felt very cool. And so for the last portion of our time together, I thought I would share some methods for measuring EI and related research findings. So there are so many options for measurement. If you went right now to Google and searched for measurement of emotional intelligence, you would get thousands of hits, and they would range a great deal in terms of quality. The same thing would happen if you went to Google Scholar. You'd get hundreds of hits, and there would be quite a range in terms of quality. And so fortunately, in 2019, there was a critical review done to help us hone in on the best options. And I will show you the winner. Let's see, it's over here. This is the SSEIT. Let's see if I can make it go up. Here we go. And this one is, it's also freely available online. You could take it online and get your instant EI score and range. So I found this review quite helpful in terms of measure selection. And the criteria that they looked at in this review, we have a psychometrician in the audience, which is terrific. They were looking at strong psychometric properties. We want to make sure that we're using measures that are reliable and valid, and also accessibility. That there's measures out there that meet the psychometric criteria, but that can be freely utilized in multiple ways, and also ones that don't take forever to complete. When I got started out, this was considered the gold standard. This is the Miscuit, which was developed by the Yale crew, and it's not freely available. In fact, like it took me several years as a teacher to get my hands on it to actually teach it. So this may be a more complicated, less accessible approach. So that's the kind of thing that they were looking at. And here are some questions that have good utility in an interview context. I am so happy, by the way, to share slides afterwards in case any of the material is helpful. And finally, oh, should I put it back with somebody? Oh, absolutely. Let's see. Yeah, in case. Oh, you're so welcome. And finally, does the data suggest that this is more than a pop culture phenomenon? Well, the answer is yes. And I just have two slides to summarize the relevant research. So indeed, high EI skills and managers are related to employee satisfaction, leadership effectiveness, transformational leadership, which is so exciting, undergraduate student leadership, and the findings actually have been parsed out even more so, that knowledge predicts team performance and level predicts individual performance. I am right now the club advisor for a group that has some complicated dynamics, and I'm hoping that if I can facilitate knowledge of EI, it will help with team performance, because they have a big deliverable that they'd like to turn out at the end of the academic year. And here I get to show off my beloved mentor a little bit more. Sigal Barsaid is the pioneer on research devoted to the role of EI in the workplace. She and her colleagues have established that the ability to read and manage emotions in the workplace impacts employee satisfaction, burnout, teamwork, as well as hard measures such as financial performance and absenteeism. And this is the dream in applied research, that you have subjective and objective findings that line up in the same way and can be acted upon in an impactful way. And in her aptly titled article, What's Love Got to Do with It? I promised my boys I wouldn't sing today or anything like that. She and her colleague Mandy O'Neill also established that companionate love is good for the workplace too. And as I look around the room, I see colleagues here, and that's what it's all about, right? Like loving what you do, loving the people that you work with. I see Carol, who's like all love. Like it's like you just like, that's what this is all about. So I'm so grateful that in the 90s, as a mentee of Sigal Barsaid, I had the joy of learning how she practiced exactly what she preached. And EI and mentorship is a very powerful combination. And so the bottom line may be that organizations, teams, and individuals all stand to benefit from choosing leaders who are high in emotional intelligence, or by developing the skills of less emotionally intelligent leaders. And this comes from the Yale group, who's established a great deal of this. I should have said by now that actually Peter Salve is the president of Yale, so this work can get you very far in life. And my final thoughts for you, I know lunch is awaiting. Evidence suggests that overall EI enhances the workplace environment. The assessment choice for EI does matter, and it's great that a review was done to help us with this. While empirically based group approaches for developing EI are somewhat limited, there are ways we can all develop those skills and build them, and it's been so delightful to talk about that. And there may be situations and roles where EI is particularly essential. I have some references here, and then just a few thanks to my phenomenal girl bosses along the way. My current boss, Dr. Maura Mast, my wonderful colleagues and students, the honor of being with you, and then my boy bosses, my beloved sons, Brendan and Daniel, who keep me in line. Well, I am so happy to stick around and talk more, and I also want to be mindful of time, that somebody just came in, and I'm guessing that was the sign that lunch is served. So thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day.